Hey, Brian from Garage Mahal. Today I have a electric bicycle tire wheel assembly. That's the size box that it comes in. It's from VEVOR. They make some fantastic products, so I'm very excited to get this. So it is a 26-inch tire. So if you have like a mountain bike or a road bike, something that takes a 26-inch tire, this will definitely work for you. Let's open up, see exactly what we get inside. Ideally, it's going to be set up for like a mountain bike. So let's open it up. And then this is pretty cool so far. So that is the inside of the box. So there's not a lot to it, which makes it super reasonable because there's not going to be like a bunch of modifications or anything else that you're going to have to do to your bicycle. So that is your set of instructions. It looks like it's got a little carry bag that's probably for the battery, some wire ties and everything else in there. So put that off into the side. Let's get this wheel out. I'm very curious to see. Now, it is a little on the heavier side, but I think that will be okay since it's motorized. So that is it out of the bag. So it definitely needs some air in the tires. Right away I see that, but that's pretty neat. And more importantly, I wanted to see the tire size. So it is 26 times 2 inch, and it is set up for, it's kind of more like a road tread, I guess, but it does have some knobbies on it, so you can probably use it road and off-road. So my particular thing, I'm probably gonna use it more road, even though I'm setting up to a mountain bike, but that is just gonna be what I am doing. Let's open up this box. Let's see everything that we get here. Now there's a couple things I was a little curious about. One was the, I guess the handlebar control, which is gonna be like your throttle. And it looks like it just has some grip to it. So it's actually like a matching grip. This is going to be your accelerator. So basically it kind of just works just like a motorcycle handle does for acceleration, if you're familiar. And let's see what else we get in here. So that's your little computer to kind of keep track of everything. And I'll get some close-ups as we start mounting and getting everything in place, just so you can see. I don't have my bicycle in here yet, but that's going to be part 2 of this video. And then this is all the wiring that you get. It looks a little complicated, but I'm sure it's probably going to be pretty simple once we get into it. You get all your different little parts and accessories and your pieces. And then that is going to be your setup for your brakes and stuff on here. So it looks like it's going to be like almost a full conversion to an electric bicycle. So we shall see. And then again, that's what's going to be basically holding the battery and the transformer and everything in there. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's get this booklet out. Looks like it has some color instructions to it as well. Some zip ties. So let me bring this to you so you can see this before we start assembly. Okay, so that is basically like testing. I guess that booklet's kind of like folded over into, so it kind of gives you, I'll give you some ideas. And this looks a lot more complicated than it probably is. I will definitely walk you through the process. So that is your electric bike motor. So that kind of gives you a general idea how that's going to be set up. So it gives you kind of another look at the controls, how everything's going to get connected. So everything looks pretty simple to connect. So that's basically going to show you set up to your front wheel. And very easy. I mean, everything so far is very straightforward. So that's going to be, that might be a little bit of a tricky point, but we'll figure that out. And then that's going to give you kind of a brief overview of your controller, how that works. So it does have a pedal assist on that. Okay, so that's everything. So let's get to it. Okay, so on top of the wheel, this is the hardware box. I also got a wiring diagram, which goes to the charger that goes to the battery underneath. So that will make sure that we have power to go to the wheel, and it gives you some idea of how big that battery is. And I guess we can take it out of the box. And part of what I was doing was I got this rack bag to stick the battery into, so that will go with that. And in this box here I have a rear rack, and that will go onto the back of this over here, so I'll mount to this frame. And this is a Scott Aspect 60. So this bike is, I don't know, it's about 12 plus years old, but just kind of give you an idea. So we'll be replacing the front wheel of this with the electric wheel, and we will turn this into a mountain bike that you can pedal with, as well as, so we'll be turning this into a electric front wheel bike that you can also pedal on. So okay, so one of the first things we are going to do is we are going to remove the front wheel and mount the electric motor wheel onto that, and then we are going to be looking at these brakes, because we're going to have to pull the brake cable out through this hole. So we are going to be using the brakes that are provided, because that's going to help control some of the internal electronics as well. So it knows when you're braking, when to slow down on things. So that's going to be your accelerator grip. And then this is going to be kind of like your, I guess, non-accelerator grip, just kind of like so you have a matching handle set. So we are going to also get these old grips off, which should be a little bit of a challenge. I think I'll squirt a little bit of WD-40 in there and they should slide right off. Okay, so far you want the wire on the right side of your bike, and these axles are basically, give you a close-up. So they're set so they sit in here, so the torque is not going to spin the axle, but it's not sitting all the way up, which means if you have a bike stand, we're going to have to drop this down so they push all the way up and they stay into spot. So stay tuned. Oh, you also have kind of a weird lock washer under here. And then you have a washer on the inside and then one on the outside. And then that's basically the same on this side as well. So that is kind of tight. So what I basically did is I just kind of basically put my weight down and it kind of slides all the way up on the other side. So now we can basically fasten the axle nuts down, so that will ride in the center of your frame, your fork frame. Okay, so with 2 wrenches, you want to tighten that wheel down, and you want to make sure that it is snug. And my fork is a little irregular, so that washer does not sit in there as nice as I'd like it to. However, the most important thing is when you have it centered, is to basically spin the wheel and make sure, like so, that's the center point of my fork. Let me point to that again a little bit better. So that is the center line of my fork, and I want to make sure that the tire is spinning basically down the center. So looks like we are good there. Okay, so the battery has a T connector, so I picked up some T connector adapters that I'll solder together to the bullet connectors that attach onto there. So kind of self-explanatory. I have enough in the kit to be able to put everything together, but I just want to make sure I have all different mounting possibilities covered before we dive deep into this. Okay, so this power connector block is for these 3 ring wires. So we're going to put them on and then attach the other end to these 3 wires off the power pack. So I will show you that in a second. But that is basically just probably a 10 millimeter. Okay, so coming off the power pack, coming off the wheel, that is how that is configured. So basically yellow, yellow, green to green, blue to blue. Now let's put the cover back on. Okay, so I'm using some heat shrink tubing on these, just kind of give you an idea how they work. And basically you just push them on and then use a heat gun to melt the connection. Pretty quick and easy, and has some solder in there that will melt with the heat gun and make a nice tight waterproof connection. So let's let that cool down and we go from there. Okay, so we basically have everything connected up. I haven't hooked the brakes up. I did put in the computer, which attaches to that part right there, and we are just going to plug the battery in. It does spark initially, so if you're a little jumpy like I am, so basically just connect the battery. And then you're going to be hitting the power button on. Hold there for a quick second. It's going to calibrate, run through everything. No errors, so that's a good thing. So we are going to use the accelerator and then just give it a little bit of juice, but I think we got to put like that on 1, so then you can see and you can hear that moving. So now we know everything works up until this point, so we can kind of put this wire mess all together, route the wires up through the frame, and we should be good to go. So stand by. Oh, also before connecting and disconnecting the battery, make sure you shut this computer off. Just hold it in, and again, the quick connect on the battery here, and for this we're just going to use and pull that off for now, but at least we know everything is working. Now we just got to route all the wiring. Okay, so this is the Rock Brothers bicycle rack. So that's how it looks in the box. Has some instructions and a bunch of cord underneath that, but let's get mounting. Okay, so this configures basically on here, just like any other like seat post clamp you're going to put on. And then this slides, so you have some adjustment screws under here, but obviously I have not adjusted this yet. We're going to put the back bar stays on here and go from there. But so far that was kind of easy. Oh, I did use one rubber spacer here. I did not use one here. Made it too thick for this bolt to fit, so keep that in mind if you have a wider seat post. Okay, so this bracket, make sure that if you have a derailleur cable like I do going down, that it sits on the outside of the screw. You obviously don't want to tighten that to the body. And I just happen to have kind of like a little rubber grommet that sits over the cable, so I can run that over the screw and kind of haven't tightened it down yet, but I just wanted to see how well it's going to work. And so far, no issues with the switching of the gears. And then, this stabilizer bar, make sure that you have the tube come up at least past this mark so you can tighten it. I'm putting on this frame, or you can probably have it straight up if you're a little on the shorter side. But I think the middle is going to give you the best stability on this overall. Okay, so as you are tightening down, make sure that it's not squeezing on the frame. I made sure that that little rubber piece was kind of sitting on the inside there, so I'm not going to get any marring. I'll probably leave this on permanent. And then again, that's kind of tightening everything not up yet, just to make sure I have placements the right way. The smaller ones are 8mm, the larger ones are 10mm, just so you know. Okay, so I am converting this into an electric bike. So this bracket, I kind of have some wires and stuff hanging on, but that's how it attaches to the frame. And then that is the Rock Bros bag that fits nice on there. And then on this side, I'm attaching it to the pre-drilled holes on the frame, so that will hold it. So if you look through, the brackets aren't lining up exactly, but I don't think that really matters when you have a bag on there. So I'll give you kind of like 2 pressure points of weight transfer, I guess, if you want to refer to it that way. But anyway, and again, excuse the wiring mess, and that's how it attaches to the seat post. But yeah, real nice. So a couple things unanticipated on the install was the fact that there is this magnetic ring that you have to put onto the bottom bracket, and then you have this little other magnetic ring that goes onto the spindle part of where the pedal connects. So this is what you need. You need an 8mm wrench like this. This is going to be a counterclockwise threading on this, so like an English thread, and you're not going to be able to do it with this. What I have found out that I needed a impact wrench to put in here to basically get that bolt out. So again, spin this way, but that made life a lot easier to get this out. And like I said, I already had loosened that, but I figured I'd give you some experience of what I went through. And then you absolutely positively need a bottom bracket tool. I used the CCP2 on this bike. Your bike may be different, but this is what you need to get your pedal off. So basically you are threading that on to the bottom of, I'm just trying to find threads here. You are turning that down. You don't have to get this snug, but you have to get it down kind of quite a bit. And then you will be spinning almost there. And then you'll be spinning this down, and this will help extract your pedal arm. So again, I was not expecting that. Pre-loosened, so kind of give you an idea of how easy that will make your life in trying to get that undone. And like I said, I just happen to have some bike tools, and if you're a DIY guy and you have bicycles, you probably have some of these, if not most of these. So anyway, let me get this off. So that is your pedal arm completely off. Next, we have to get that bottom bracket cup, per se, that retention holder ring that's on there. This is another Park tool, the HCW-5. This thing is a little bit of a lifesaver, and if your bracket has the 3 points, absolutely positively use that. I struggled with this, and I have it I had it pre-loosened, but just to kind of give you an idea, that was on there super tight, and also a counterclockwise position and be able to remove that ring. So kind of give you an idea. So that ring comes off pretty easy. WD-40 will definitely help you do that. I had a bit of trouble getting it off, and I happened to have a piece of exhaust pipe that gave me a little extra leverage, and I was able to put that on this end of the wrench, and it gave me a little bit extra leverage, as you can see, to crank that off. By hand, I never would have gotten that off anyway. And I don't know why they get so tight over time. It's a bicycle, it's not a car. But anyhow, so that's that. And then again, we are going to be placing this ring. So you want the red part out. That's going to be your magnetic connection. And it kind of slips on like that. And I'm not sure which way I'm going to mount this wire yet. I haven't quite got that far into the planning of this, but I think I am probably going to... Do I have enough wire to go up that way? Nope. So I'll probably mount it like this so I can head up the one down tube and kind of connect it like that. So let's get that in a situation where I think I can wire tie it like right there. So let's see how much room I have with this ring to get on there. And it's going to be tight, I would imagine. Probably only going to get a couple threads on that. I think we just started grabbing a little bit of thread on there. So let me just move that a little bit more. Check the weld behind there, make sure we got enough room. And then back to the cup wrench, which we are going to use to help tighten that down. Okay. Let me tighten that down a little bit more, but basically everything is basically reverse, getting everything back on. Next, this is going to be the magnet that sensor is going to pick up. So I'll put it right about there. Make sure we have this positioned the right way. Then we're going to put our bolt back in there. Okay, so I am having both brakes still sit on here. Disconnecting that was pretty easy. Basically, you just had kind of like that little thumb knob here that you can unwind, and it has a cable slot in there, so it's really easy to get that barrel cable connection in there. And you can tell how loose it is coming down the brake line. So we'll get that set up in a second. But this is the electronic wire gizmo, so we're going to mount all that stuff. I already put the controller on the handlebar, so it's a matter of just getting everything lined up right. And this is how I am threading the wire up from the wheel. And since this has a shock on it, I'm probably going to make this pretty tight because I don't want like too much movement going on it. But this kind of goes up, so I already made sure I had the steering wheel loose enough that I could handlebars loose enough that I could go back and forth, so it's got some slack on there. And then it's going to be a matter of just tightening up the brakes on this and the cabling and all that stuff. So far, so good. Okay, so everything is wired up. I still have to snip all the little tails off the wire ties. but that is a cable that runs underneath. Hopefully I'm not going to have any problems with that cabling with the regular cables for the brakes and everything else. So that is the pack that is going to hold the battery, and all the power stuff goes in through there, so you can kind of see how it all goes through the little eyelet. And I think we're all set and ready to go. Brakes are adjusted on the front. They drag a little bit, and on the back I put a little adjustment in them as well. I gotta be honest with you, the bike is a lot heavier, but I don't think that's gonna make much difference because we have the battery assist. Anyway, let me cut these tails off the wire ties, and we'll bring it for a trip and we'll see how it works. Okay, so everything's hooked up, everything's working properly. I took a lap around my development, so I used half a battery because I basically had it going full force. So I was cruising around at probably about 30 miles an hour. Going uphill is easily hitting 2021. Anyway, I figured I'd give you a quick demo. All right, let's go up this hill and see how it does. Anyway, pretty awesome, and on rocky terrain, it's almost having like four-wheel drive, even though you're like two-wheel drive, because you have the regular manual pedal that you do, and then you have a front wheel that is pulling you along as well. So anyway, Brian from Garage Mahal, thanks for watching, and be safe out there.